All right. Hello and welcome to the Digital Kindness Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Marcinek, and I am so glad you're here. Today, we are welcoming Dr. Matthew Joseph to the pod. Matthew Joseph is the Assistant Superintendent of Technology and Learning in New Bedford, Massachusetts, right next door to me here, just down the road a few ways. He is also the CEO of X Factor Media Consulting and Publishing. Experience such as executive director of teaching and learning, director of curriculum and instruction, director of digital learning and innovation, elementary school principal. Let's just say Matt has done it all. Classroom teacher, professional development specialist. Matt has incredible insights on how to best support teaching and learning, and led to naturally published articles and opportunities to speak at multiple state and national events. I've got to know Matt over the years here, being in Massachusetts, at conferences, at FETC. I spoke on his podcast. And it's a great honor to have Matt here with us on the newly formed Digital Kindness Podcast. Welcome, Matt.
No, I'm excited to be here and seeing the work that you're doing, and feeling honored to be here, especially with some of the new projects I'm working on. I think I'm really excited to talk about it, continue to learn from you and in your work, and share with your listeners. As you said, I wouldn't say I've done it all, but I've done a lot and I've experienced a lot, both positive and negative. And I think that's kind of led me into this kind of phase of sharing, being essentially on the back nine of my career, being 50 plus. Like, what can I give back at this point to support others for some of the things I've seen and done and learned from.
Nice, nice. Well, I like the golf analogy there. It is a major season here in the golf world, so it's
Sure.
been exciting to watch some golf. Um, so today we're going to really talk about. I have a copy here that you were very kind enough to send me here. Digital Explorers. Really excited about this book. I love the artwork. I love the fact that it is very relatable to, I think, what a lot of teachers deal with dealing with technology in schools. It has the one part I really love is just these takeaways and these lessons that the kids experience throughout the book. Think before you click, be careful about what you share online, and protect personal information. It has the kids getting into relatable scenarios that I'm sure all kids experience when they first engage online, whether that's at home or in school. Um, and so I really liked it, and I have a 1-year-old daughter, and I can imagine myself going through this book with her, in a few years when she starts to kind of think through and ask questions about technology. Can I have an iPad? Can I have a phone? All these questions that parents are dealing with, and in some cases, what schools are dealing with on a day in and day out basis. So. I honestly love the book, and I also love
Well,
at the
thank
end
you.
where yeah, there's QR codes at the end where you can kind of click into further lessons about the book. Um, so, why did you write this book? I love it. I really enjoy it, and I think it's very timely. But I want to hear from you why you wrote this book.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. As you are someone who's a content creator as well, it's a risk putting things out there. You never, know what people are going to say or
Right.
think. So somebody I respect like you in the field, in the space, it means a lot. And I think for me, my favorite job in this profession, you've read a lot, is I always loved being a principal. That was a job that I try to still in central office replicate. I try to get into schools. I try to lead professional development. I identify as that kind of role. And I think one of the things that why I wrote the book is in the current role, the last 9 years has been more in central office, but keeping that elementary lens that is the foundation of our work. And with all of the new technology that is coming, and it's coming at rapid pace, I am someone who really promotes student voice. I'm somebody who wants students to use things. And some of the times that when you are a professional who promotes a lot of technical work in technology and apps and tools, you're often met with some resistance of like, here are some of the fears. And a lot of them are legitimate. And I want to
Right.
mention that too. So the reason I wrote the book is I saw a need that a lot of our work and any of the like data privacy or social media was like middle school and above, middle school and above, middle school and above. Well, why are we waiting till sixth grade till we start talking about this? Because we're seeing younger students using technology, and it's not just phones, it's not just computers. They're on Xbox. They're on avenues that they can access the world and strangers,
Right.
just not to get
Right.
scared about it. But so I wanted to put something together that was like, I've done read alouds for elementary school. I am in elementary schools my whole life. I was an elementary teacher and then an elementary school principal. That is a group that I think is very fertile for learning. And it's also often a level that you're like, oh, let's not talk about it until you're in middle
Right.
school. Well, we need to talk about it because it's reality. Or they're making
Yeah.
movies now about video games. So why are we not talking about it? And I think you brought up the artwork, and when I met with, I did not illustrate it, but when I met with the illustrator,
Mhm.
I love Pixar movies. I love the story of Pixar. I love the
Yep.
the themes of. I said, how can you make this? I don't want it to be AI, but I want you to do digital artwork that's like Pixar. So I'm hopeful that people think like, oh, it looks like a little bit of Pixar, because I think that gravitates to students. There's a comfort level there. There's a familiarity with that. So I think writing the book, I also have the cadence of a read aloud person or a librarian
Right.
I know that has that. So stopping every like 4 pages, like that's about the second graders level of paying attention. So
Yeah.
let's have something that we can talk about. And that was
Right.
where those lessons learned kind of came from, of like, let's talk about this now. And that was that's kind of the point of it. And it's also for families, because
Yep.
sadly sometimes schools get a bad rap. Like, you're just putting your kids on digital babysitters, or you're just having
Right.
too much tech. Well, when they go home, let's have these conversations too. Like, how can we make this happen? How are we allowing students on Switch or any of these other tools that are out there, and finding positive ways? And I also tried to make the examples not too complex. Like, these are
Right.
things
Yeah.
that could happen across any
So
platform.
yeah. No, and it's good, and I think it's very timely, and I want to go back to something you said around, we a lot of the focus has been on middle school students, and having been a tech director, having been a classroom teacher, I get that like sixth grade is like the year when these kids just go crazy with technology and they push all the wrong buttons, and literally and figuratively.
Sure.
And one thing I think we all learned is we also had this moment during the pandemic where kids were just thrown onto technology just kind of aimlessly to get by. We all had to do it. Every school had to do it. And so I think it's important that we start to kind of, I think, reflect and process a little bit more about when we're bringing kids into these spaces, and making sure we're doing it with the right pacing and with the right understanding, not to bury our heads in the sand around technology and just ban technology and say we're not going to use it. I think it's important with a book like yours and Digital Explorers to have relatable content for both teachers, parents, and students of kids at the elementary level, um, who in some cases now, according to some of the data it points out there, kids are getting cell phones, kids are getting iPads very early in their lives. Schools are still giving out in one-to-one programs, so I think this is really an important topic to reinforce these topics, but also I think tell parents and teachers that we need to maybe just slow down a little bit and really focus on some of these essential skills, of digital literacy and information literacy and digital well-being.
Yeah, and I think building off of your work of digital kindness is, it's not saying ban everything or shut everything or block it down. It's like, here's how we have to treat people in a digital space. One
Yep.
of the things one of my hallmarks when I was, early years of a principal for, was really this digital communities. I said, I have two jobs. Principals have two jobs: make sure the kids have the best education possible, and make sure they're safe in school. Those are my two jobs. Well, now I've added, they have to be safe in school, both physically and digitally.
Right.
And I
Right.
think, part of that was going back to why I wrote the book. And we're seeing technology everywhere now. And you go to a restaurant, you're not going to walk through a restaurant without seeing some kid on an iPad. I'm not questioning
Yeah.
anybody's parenting. I'm just
Right.
saying, let's talk about it. If that's going to be something that's used, fine. But
Hmm.
something could pop up, or a website, or while you're in the restaurant, says free dessert, click here. Whatever it is, it's going to be a part of it. And the way, games apps are built now, and is very kind of game based competitive, and that's okay. Like, I'm starting to do the Peloton and the competitive atmosphere that I was like, oh, I want to get this
Yeah.
streak. I want to do, I mean, I'm
Right.
53 and I still have that mindset. So a 7 year old is going to have the same thing. I want the high score. I want to get the next level. So that's encouraging, but also having some discussion around, okay, here's how long we can play, or here, make sure you
Yeah.
check with this, or check the settings of all the devices. So it's trying to be encouraging but realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm with you, Matt. I mean, if I see a pop up that says free dessert on my phone with all my expertise and all my knowledge, I'm still clicking that button. Like,
Yeah.
it's I mean, things aren't cheap these days. If you see free
Right.
dessert, I'm totally in. I don't care if I get 42 other pop-ups, like I'm all in.
Right.
But no, you're right though, and I think it is. I think it's you and I both kind of came into the kind of schools around the time of, one-to-one programs being rolled out all over the place here in Massachusetts and across
Yeah.
the country. And I think it was something now where we're looking at AI becoming more and more of a thing, and I think about parents and what they're dealing with, and and teachers, what they're dealing with. It's just almost like a pile on, and I think it's completely good for a school leader to say, like, hey, we're gonna step back and reevaluate and reflect about our technology use, especially at the elementary level, just to make sure we're doing it right and we're getting it right, because this isn't a race. Like, we don't need to this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so I think we need to really, uh take that to heart and think about how we're implementing technology, how we're using ed tech across the board.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So Matt, you touch upon a digital well-being, which is a topic I love talking about. I think it's something that we don't talk enough about in schools. I feel like there's a lot of there's more reaction than proactive, um, policies and procedures in schools and learning in schools around technology. So why the topic of digital well-being, and why now?
Well, I think we talk a lot about sometimes filling a need in our profession, like where is a need, and sometimes things get oversaturated, like there's a lot of work on that, and what I look for is how can I give back and fill a need. And one of the characters in the book, Miss Mac, is actually based on my good friend Mary Alice Curran, and she did a lot of work with digital citizenship, and she taught me. So we've become really good friends, and we've worked through that field. And one of the things she said to me recently was like, let's focus on more of the wellness side of it, not just being good citizens, but being well with that. So this is about a year ago, and it started to be pique my interest. Like, all right, that's interesting. And now in my current role, that I oversee the technology for our whole district, and we have about 13,000 students. And when I shifted from the assistant superintendent of teaching and learning to assistant superintendent of technology and learning, that's a big responsibility. That I'm responsible for this, many students. How can I ensure that they're, get the best education possible and digitally safe at school? And I think I started to read a little bit more, obviously becoming friends with you and learning about your work. And a couple of our friends are really focused on both the promotion of technology, but the realities of it. I saw an opportunity that I could get into schools and share some ideas on how to support this wellness, and how to, you know have students feel safe to use some of these tools, because sometimes you hear the horror stories or the fears, and some of it
Right.
is
Right.
sadly accurate. But at the same point, there are so many things that students can flourish in, or some learners learn differently. So when that's the case, we have to support those learners as well. We have a whole pre-K center. How are earliest learners having that opportunity to feel safe online? So I think going down that path was, for the first of it, was me being a learner. I love when I get to learn things, because it piques my interest. It drives me professionally. And as the more I started to learn some of the background, reading your book, listening to other individuals talk about the wellness side of the technology, it piqued my interest. And I was like, how can I contribute? And that's where kind of the book came to light, was like, what can I do to support? What are some of the things I do well?
Yeah.
And being an elementary school teacher, being an elementary school principal, like, I think this could be a fit that isn't you know, a lecture, or isn't a, like, don't do these. I don't like rules. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a negative way. I don't like the don't run, don't do
Right.
this, don't, like, let's focus on
Yeah.
expectations, let's focus on reality. So it wasn't a scare tactic of like, these are the scary dark things. It's like, these are going to happen, so why not talk about it and feel safe about it?
Yeah, no, and I'm totally with you on that deal of rules. I came into schools, we had these acceptable use policies, and I
Yeah.
never liked the language or demeanor or the tone of those policies. And so I think, and especially with technology, we want kids to tinker, we want kids to explore, we want kids to. That's why I love like digital explorers. Like we don't want kids to, follow a script. We want them to chart their own journey and explore through
Hmm.
technology. That's ultimately what it's for. I think you and I are on the same page when we say, and we have seen students in our careers do really great things by leveraging technology, by leveraging their student voice. When I was teaching at Burlington public schools and at the high school, I had a lot of students that went on to college or did stuff in the content creation space or blog or used technology to level up their voice and
Hmm.
expand their voice and network and do stuff like that. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And the hard part now is that it's gotten a lot murkier as far as using technology in that kind of space and where is our audience and the saturation of things. So
Sure.
um, I'm also glad you brought up Mary Alice Curran because I think she was someone I have always looked up to, and have in the digital citizenship space. I think she's been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
Back when I was doing Twitter chats, in 2009, she was saying we need to be creating responsible digital citizens, and I learned and I got a lot from her, and it's really cool that Mrs. Mack is based off of her because I think
Yeah.
she is someone that we all can go to. It's like, hey, I have this issue with students and I'm not sure where to go. Like, where can you go? So um, how do you? I like the Ms. Mack character, kind of the role of the tech savvy teacher who students can turn to for support and advice, and along their technology journey. So, kind of in the context of a school where there may not be a Miss Mac, how do you see teachers and even school leaders introducing this to their schools or presenting some of this work um, around digital explorers into their classroom practice?
Sure. And just a quick note on Mary Alice, and we'll move forward to get to that question. Because one of the things I like to do too is just to have fun with things. So there's a lot of Easter eggs in
Yeah,
that book, and Mac is essentially Mary Alice Curran.
yeah,
And for me, it was just a
got
lot of fun,
yeah,
fun to do that. And I think the ways that can be brought in is, it's not something different. Like, I know that schools have morning meetings. I know that they have read alouds. It's not a special, let's go to the computer lab time and read this book. It's that this can be weaved into other books that have life lessons in it, that learn about content. And my recommendation is to talk about it and to have teachers read it. But I think there's two sides to this. Again, I started by saying I love being a principal. It's my favorite job, and I operate in that lens. There also is the hidden message to some of our teachers who say sometimes that our kids can't do this, or I'm afraid to have kids online. It's showing them, not that Miss Mac character that you're saying was not saying don't do this or let's be afraid. Like, let's talk to the adult. Let's be
yeah,
cautious, and let's keep moving forward. And at the end, they make this presentation, and they use technology for good. That's her big phrase: use technology for good. And I think it's the way schools can use it is continuing to promote the things that enhance students, and
yeah,
having teachers versed enough to talk about it. And one of the things I learned both from being an elementary teacher and an elementary principal, you never know what kids are going to say. So you might ask them some of those questions that are in the book. They may come up with answers you would have never expected. And I think
yeah,
getting their voice and students' voice as part of the discussion might open some teachers' eyes. They might say, "Oh, I would have never thought of that from an 8-year-old perspective." And as somebody who in elementary school, the difference between students and teachers is the largest age gap. So having that opportunity to hear from the students, even in a very lighthearted conversation like that, it opens teachers' eyes to, like, wow, some of these kids are on video games all the time. Or,
yeah,
wow, I could learn something from this student who could show me how to help me out. And I think just sharing with educators that students are versed in this world, and they do need some guardrails, but also need some support because they're still young and immature.
yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you have that student voice piece throughout, and I feel like that really comes through, and that it shows that these students do have a lot of inquiry and innovative ideas and curiosity built within their being, which a lot of our all of our students have.
Mhm.
And I think just having that teacher, that support along the way, they don't have to be super tech savvy, they don't have to be a Miss Mac. I think they can be
Right.
any teacher that's out there. I've always said the what best one-to-one device is a really good dynamic teacher, and I still believe that, like in a classroom, today. um, so I want to kind of shift gears, and we're going to wrap up soon here. I know we could talk all day, pretty much, and we have before. I think we've
Yeah.
had talked all day, talked all night. I also want to make one comment. You're talking about Easter eggs. I love that Carl, in the book, wears the Go Bird shirt.
I knew you would.
I am I don't say it too broadly up here in Massachusetts. I couldn't for about 20 years during the Patriots dynasty, but I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, and have been my entire life. And so I was really happy. I really connected with the character of Carl. I was like, I like that kid. I think he should get an A+, and get all the
Good.
technology use he wants. So, um, but one of the reasons I started this podcast and wrote the book Teaching Digital Kindness, was that I did a lot of reflecting, like I said earlier, and research on how technology was impacting students. We saw the stuff around, the Surgeon General report came out in May of 2023, talking about what social media was doing to kids, teenagers particularly. And then, we had the Anxious Generation book
Yeah.
come out from Jonathan Haidt, and all of a sudden we see, Oprah and everyone calling for cell phone bans, and it's happening. You see states are doing
Absolutely.
it, and I've always believed in balance of technology, and I definitely get that in the digital explorers. I mean, these kids weren't just sitting around stationary, looking at a screen. So, you know, thinking about your role as an author and a principal and all you do, what do you think is the right balance of technology between home and school, but also at the elementary level?
So I think, and that's a huge complex question, almost could be its own podcast. But one of the things that I share with staff, both at a school level and now at a district level, is to add technology last
Mm,
and plan the learning for students. Plan what you want students to learn. And if technology can enhance that learning, then it's a good place to use it. If it's
right,
just a $500 babysitter because you're doing math problems online, like, don't do it. And
right,
sometimes
right.
examples. I just worked with um, I worked with two. I'll give two examples. I know we're coming up on time, but one with the elementary school where they're stuck. We were stuck in some of the student writing. They were writing fables. So we did a Canva project and we had all the students create characters with AI characters. They didn't
Mm,
spend their whole day on it, but they created characters. And when they saw their character come to life, they wrote just on actual paper for 2 days. They were so excited to bring those characters to life so that the technology enhanced their creativity, enhanced their learning. They didn't then just sit on type for 2 hours. They had to write. They eventually created a story about it. And then in high school, they're having a debate. And it was like, all right, frame your debate out first. We went through like post-it notes. We put through some of your arguments, and then we created using some digital tools to create a free-flowing kind of conversation. So it enhanced and brought the learning forward. So I guess my short answer is if it's going to enhance what students are learning or discovering, it's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful avenue for discovery, for creativity. If there's if it's planned with the technology in mind, it typically is not planned correctly.
right. No, and I like that. I like that idea of technology should support and enhance and further the learning. It shouldn't be the driver of
Right.
that. So I appreciate that answer. It was a really, yeah. I realized when I wrote that question, I was like, that's a pretty long, detailed question. You're right. It could probably serve as its own podcast around how we balance technology even in our own
Yeah.
lives. I mean, just thinking about how we do that. Um, so I want to end with a final
Sure.
question that I'm gonna, ask all my guests and all future guests. Um, what strategy do you use in your own life to step away from the digital world?
Yeah. So I'm someone who likes to challenge myself. Sometimes idiotically by doing Spartan races and things that I shouldn't be doing plus 50. But for me, it keeps me grounded, and I love public accountability. And
Yep.
I love to do, like, now I'm really into being on the Peloton and working out in that capacity. I'm going to start running a little bit again. I have the Boston Run to Remember coming up. And so I try to
Nice.
find things that I get to get outside, or I get to work out in a capacity that keeps me active. It keeps me engaged in a community in some sense. A lot of things I do still is community based, either through the Peloton online or running a race day in Boston. I'm really excited for that. Or I'm doing the Spartan race in September. So for
Nice.
me, it's stepping away, but also challenging myself, because I know that drives me both professionally and personally. So I don't need, I might have my phone to listen to music, or I love to take walks. And anyone who sees me online knows I have a dog named Gizmo, and we go for walks, and I'll listen to a podcast. So I think
Yeah,
just stepping away and living life it actually helps me professionally to stay present when I'm doing the work that I'm doing.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And it's, I think and it goes along with the idea of, digital well-being. I mean, digital well-being is, we first have to be well ourselves and make sure we're
Yeah.
treating ourselves with kindness and wellness, so that we can help support others in that space and in that journey. So thank you again, Matt.
Well,
Really
thanks for
appreciate
having
you
me on.
being on the pod today. Again, everyone, the book is The Digital Explorers, The Adventure Begins, a digital well-being journey. You can get it lots of places, Amazon, all the different places. Make sure you grab a copy. It's really great. Um, Matt, thank you again for
Oh,
being
thanks.
here on the Digital Kindness Podcast, and
Of course.
look forward to seeing your work down the road and in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, and continue to learn from you and your work as well.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Take care.
See ya.